Live from the Clarity from Chaos studios, heard worldwide, it's Dave Campbell. On every episode, Dave and his guests explore, discuss, and work on solutions to some of life's biggest challenges. So, if you're ready, be prepared to be enlightened, amused, and even shocked by what you hear. And now, the real, the authentic, the one and only Dave Campbell.
Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Dave Campbell, and you are listening to Clarity from Chaos. If you're new to the show and like what you hear, take a moment and go to my website on Substack, and the address there is clarityfromchaos, all one word, .substack.com. There you can listen to the archived shows, which I have many, upcoming guests, and you can also support the show by clicking the subscribe button. Now, ladies and gentlemen, darkness is falling on our country, and unless we understand and get involved, we will lose this great country of ours. We have a spiritual battle going on, and it needs to be recognized as such. The church and the Bible need to be present in our lives. But before we move on, I'd like to play an excerpt from a movie released in 1976. For those of you old enough, this was during the middle of the second worst presidency in our country's history, the Carter years. The movie was called Network, and Peter Finch, a.k.a. Howard Beale, played a network executive on the show. And he gave what I think summarizes what we are today facing after the 4 worst years of a presidency in our country's history. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to play this. Take a minute and listen, and I think you'll understand what I was talking about.
Take 2, Q Howard.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. So, I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
Our guest on this edition of Clarity is not a newcomer to the show. He is someone who has been on the front lines fighting evil that is trying to take over this country. He is the founder, president, and CEO of Invest USA, Mr. Michael Letts. Michael has over 30 years of law enforcement experience, and his company to date has supplied over 17.1 thousand concealable and active shooter vests to the police forces across our great country. Welcome to the show, Michael.
David, it's always a privilege to be with you. We thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for what you're doing for this country. We need truth now more than ever.
Oh, absolutely. I want to start out with your view on what these idiot Congress people have done relative to the UMCJ and get your thoughts on it, because to me, it's probably one of the worst things I think I have ever heard done. And that was their little TikTok tirade about illegal orders.
Well, there's a purpose behind it. We're going to talk about that in just a moment, but let's take a look at what they actually did and why it's so important that you mentioned it. First of all, you had 6 members of Congress, some in the Senate, some in the House, 3 were former service members,
Right.
3 were from the intelligence agencies, who got and issued a plea to the armed forces to not feel like they had to obey any order that came across, so they could refuse unlawful orders. Now you say, "Oh, that sounds reasonable." No, let's really analyze this for a
Oh,
minute.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was
Because
not reasonable at all.
the first problem that you have, David, with the situation is, okay, so what unlawful order was given that
Right.
you don't think should be obeyed? Well, we've asked them that question. I've done it on national shows. And the response has always been the same, regardless of the member of Congress I ask. Well, we weren't saying that there was an awful order given. We were saying if an unlawful order is given.
Right.
There's a big difference there. And the reason why I say there's a big difference, everybody in the military understands there is a chain of command, okay? And the chain of command does not give you the right to question whether you think the order is a lawful order or not. See, if we took that position, David, when you came into a combat situation and then I received an order to take my men and take a bunker or whatever it may be, I may say, well, that's an unlawful order because it puts my men at risk, risk their lives, and I don't think that's lawful to risk their lives, so I'm going to refuse. If we did that, imagine the precedent that we're setting for not just for the military, for war operations, but for the country at all. We do not
Right.
have law and order then, because then everybody can question, well, I know you think the speed limit says 70, but I think that's an unlawful order. I think that's an infringement on my freedom of expression. I'm going to drive 100. And that's just the way this whole pattern begins to evolve.
Right.
So why would they make such a statement? Well, it's really very easy to begin to see what their motives are, David. We have gotten so far in this country with so many corrupt agencies, and the depth of corruption runs so deep, that they are planning a full-scale attack or an insurrection or an attempted overthrow of the government. Now, when
Yeah.
that begins, they realize that they can't be successful if there's military intervention. So they want to convince you ahead of time. They want to lay the groundwork that, look, if you get an order that makes you uncomfortable, and everybody would be uncomfortable having to, quote unquote, deal with their fellow American, their neighbor, or put down.
Right.
That's not a pleasant task. It's not one it's one they certainly will do because they've been sworn to uphold the law, but it's not a pleasant task. But what they're saying is, if you get an order that's not pleasant, just ignore it. Just say it's unlawful. That sets the stage for them to complete their mission of a coup d'état, an overthrow of our government. Here's what's ironic, David. You read about these things in history in third world countries, and you stand there and you say, wow, how did they overthrow that government? Or no wonder why they have it so bad. You never think that could occur here in the United States of America.
Oh,
But
exactly.
these 6 Congress people have just set the stage, which is
Yep.
why the president is correct. You have committed treason. You have set the ground for insurrectionists, and because of that, you need to be tried and convicted. If the evidence shows that. For those who are in the military, you're going to be recalled back to active duty, and you will be court-martialed, stripped of your rank, and then allow the court-martial court will then decide what kind of punishment is deserving, whether it's just to be drummed out dishonorably and stripped of your rank, whether there's other consequences to face. The other 3 Congress people who are the intelligence community will face I believe they should face a military tribunal, because the
Yeah.
military tribunals are specifically designed for treason of the country. And this is treasonous, and they should face the same consequences.
Yeah. The problem though, Mike, is it's just like being in a court and a lawyer says something, and even though it's sustained, the jury still hears it. So what needs to happen here is a propaganda machine 2 or 3 times larger than what these idiots went and did, and launch that, as well as holding these individuals accountable for what they've done. Now, you're absolutely right. When they came out and said you can disobey an illegal order, obviously nobody even paid attention to the fact that, except now, that they did not even give an example of an illegal order, what an illegal order even looked like.
Correct.
They just, had a really bad case of hoof and mouth and went out there and did what they did. And I think, to me, number one is Kelly ought to be completely stripped of his rank, court-martialed, and whatever the court-martial comes up with to as far as punishment. The other ones, I don't know, but I saw a note today that Hegseth even explained to him that he didn't even know how to properly ribbon his uniform. So,
You're right.
yeah. So, these guys, these guys should not be taken seriously, but unfortunately, it's like I said, they've got it out there. It's in the public realm now, and everybody's going, "Oh, woo, woo, woo." That sure sounds like that. That's reasonable. That this is reasonable, but uh, what would be absolutely funny is what goes around come around is they be in a position, for example, for the military to be guarding them at an embassy or something like that, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden here comes charging 400 Nigerians. They're going to overrun the embassy, and you've got 25 Marines standing there, and they all look at each other going, "Oh, this seems reasonable," and you just open the gates, right? And you have all these Nigerians running around with heads in their hands because they just lopped off the heads of everybody that was in that embassy. So the unintended consequences of this is so far reaching. And having been in the military, I've never, even at the worst of times, Mike, I never ever heard that kind of crap come out of a politician's mouth. And what people need to understand is the military doesn't do this on their own. They do it at the direction of these morons that we've elected and put in office. The military just doesn't go off and decide to invade Grenada or whatever. They do it at the behest of the commander-in-chief and the Congress, right?
That's correct.
It's not up to the military. They do their bidding according to the politics of this country. So here you have four morons out there, basically degrading our ability and quite frankly, degrading their own credibility for their decision making, right? And if the rest of the congressmen and women, they should be standing up and running these guys out of their particular seats for that very reason, because they've just undermined the credibility of the entire institution.
Oh, you're exactly right. Again, it gets back to this particular issue. What was their entire purpose behind it? And I firmly believe this. Their purpose was to send a message to the military. We no longer have orders. You're ultimately in control. You as the individual. So you decide whether you think you want to participate in this, that, or the other. And if you don't, just say it's an unlawful order. And you don't have to do it. Well, that's not the way the military has ever been structured and never will be structured. When we have a military, we have a chain of command, and we expect the chain of command to work. That's the only way you're to be successful. That's the only way we'll be able to defend freedom for generations. And many of our fellow brothers have paid the ultimate sacrifice because, hey, they didn't particularly care for the order. In fact, many of them, many times, in many events, in many situations I've been with, it's an order in a situation. Good and well, when you really kind of think about it for a moment, this is going to be a high casualty rate. And so in your mind, you're sitting there thinking, there probably would be a better way to do this, but that's not the way the military operates. The order is given. This is what we're supposed to do. And we trust those above us to have enough fortitude to know exactly how this ultimately plays out at the end. And we do our jobs. And this totally undermines that. And that's why it's so important in this particular issue. I know the mainstream media wants to say, they were just giving some suggestions, move on, let's talk about something else.
Yeah, they want to throw, slide it off like it was just some minor BS that came up. It's just a TikTok video. It's just this. It's just, and they didn't suggest, they didn't say go do this, but the media, or at least some of the right thinking media, and not just Fox or Newsmax or anybody, but I'm sure that there's individual on the other media channels going, they could connect the dots with this thing just as well as you and I.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's disturbing. I'd love to see somebody do this, but it goes back to what you and I talk about all the time, and that's accountability.
Right.
And the media wet themselves when Trump said it was treasonous and punishable by execution, which it absolutely is. It's punishable by a firing squad. And people just need to start getting it.
Well, I reminded the administration that we wouldn't be having this conversation today had we done a little earlier what we should have done, and that was General Miley when he made the treasonous actions to tell the Chinese that should we decide to go to war, I'll notify you first and
Right.
let you know what our plans are. That was
Yeah.
treason in and of itself. He should be recalled to active duty and face a court martial. Now,
Right.
he's scared to death that that's going to happen. I'm glad he is scared to death of it, but unfortunately, the track record has been lately here in the administration that a lot of threats, but no action.
Yeah,
We've got to
there-
do better, David.
I absolutely agree, which kind of brings me up to the next point that I wanted us to talk about, and that was the Somali fraud and corruption that's in Minnesota. Obviously the fraud and corruption was overseen by a bunch of fraud and corrupted Democrats,
Right.
led by Tim Walz. But it's incredible to me that the amount of money that has been taken out of this country and funneled into our adversaries, for bad actors, if you will. And there hasn't been what I would consider a full Monty on this whole situation. To me, Bondi ought to take it over and run the damn feds in there and clean house.
There's no question you're right. The president has already paved the way for that, and here's how he's done that: is the president removed the protection status
Right.
for the Somali immigrants that were brought over.
Right.
The Biden administration did that for a reason. They created a community large enough. We're talking about not 5 or 10 people, we're talking about hundreds of thousands.
Oh,
They
yeah.
could control a congressional seat, which they now have with Omar.
Right.
And they put them all in there. They brought them over on visas. I think it's very interesting. Somebody raised the point, and I think it would probably prove to be true. Be nice for ISIS to go in there and let me see all your visas. You'll probably find out that 90% of them are expired. 90% of those that are getting to vote for that congressional seat don't have a reason to be here. They should be deported. And those are the kind of things that we have to do, David,
Right.
if we're serious about, having law and order. Our whole foundation in this country is based on law. And either we enforce it or we don't. I've caught some criticism nationally because when the president was to meet with Mandani, they said, what are you going to recommend the president do? I said, I recommend a very short 30-second meeting. Greet him when he comes in with a firm handshake to let him know the power of the United States. Set him on the couch, open up his file where he came in as a naturalized citizen but lied on the application. Say, are these your lies? When he says, yes, sir, say, if you'll step out that door, there's 2 ICE agents. Your citizenship is revoked. They'll see that you get on the plane, have a good flight, but don't ever come back. That's the way I would have handled it. Now, I understand the president thought it was best to bring him in, have some private words with him the media didn't get to see, and to kind of let him know we control the budget, we control the situation, and
Yeah.
you're going to do it our way, and hope you're going to be able to learn to live with that. But it was an image issue that I had, and this is what I told the president. It was,
Yeah.
I don't care that he was mayor-elect. Doesn't make any difference to me.
Doesn't matter.
He broke the law.
Right.
If you break the law, you suffer the consequences. If you and I had done that, David, I will tell you this: we would have been, we would have pulled our driver's license or pulled our citizenship in a heartbeat.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then he actually signed an EO about the Muslim Brotherhood, which I thought was terrific as well, which then pulls in the, the whole CARE situation and everything else.
It did. I will have to let our listeners know that was a great first step. You say, why are you saying it was just a first step?
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, the Muslim Brotherhood, you need to understand, is an organization that has various chapters all across the world, okay? Some chapters are much worse than others. The worst chapters are Turkey, Qatar, and others. And those chapters were actually exempted underneath this particular order. So that's a little problematic. I would have liked to have seen it been an order for all. Instead, it was an order for majority of chapters in the world, but some were exempted who obviously have political influence. But at least it's a step in the right direction. Hopefully we can complete the process, complete the circle, and make it apply to everyone.
So here's my question, Mike. I know you have a voice into the administration. Is Bondi so far in the deep end of the pool that she can't react to all of the things that she needs to be reacting to now, or is she just busier than a damn cat burying crap in a windstorm?
Well,
Go
let
ahead.
me give you both explanations, and then you and I will decide, analyze, both responses, okay?
Okay.
From Bondi's standpoint, he would say, and there's some merit to what she's saying, but there have been hundreds of prosecutors that have resigned from the Department of Justice because they do not believe in the policy and of the Trump administration.
Right.
So yes, she is short-staffed. Can you replace those? Yes, there are people to replace them with, but you got to work through the process. You have to make sure some of
Right.
those that would be good conservatives would have the concern that, well, if I came back and worked for you and you don't survive more than another couple years, 2 or 3 years, then what's going
what?
to happen to me?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
the other side that I'll be targeted. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like, you know what? I think I'm just going to stay out of the fight.
Yeah.
Bad reasoning, but at least that's being truthful. And
Yeah.
so she says that, and because then you've also had the issue over at the bureau, because you remember they get a complaint, they have to send it to the bureau to do the investigation to see if it's warranted to move forward
Right.
on an indictment or not. And if you can't get those files back from the bureau in a timely manner, you've got problems. So, and Cash's position is almost the same thing. Look at how
Yeah.
many people we've had to let go. Do I have enough people to get all this stuff processed? That's what's being said. The flip side, the administration's position is, we made promises to the American people.
Right.
The American people were excited when we took the oath of office. They understood that you don't change things in 24 hours. Then they understood after about 4 or 5 months, we're gearing up. It takes a little longer. But we're at almost a year now, David.
Yeah.
And when your track record is almost zero, you saw we had a couple of diamonds with Comey and Letitia that went south because they weren't handled the right way.
Yeah.
Not that I agree that they should have gone south. Quick side note on that. I know the federal judge, Cameron, and I think she made a big mistake.
Well, and I think,
Yes.
I think it'll get overturned as well.
I agree.
But it from a
Bad
expectation,
image.
bad image from an expectation standpoint. You've got to know going in that you're going to have to cross your T's and dot your I's with these SOBs because they're going to be looking for any kind of a hole to get themselves out of. Now, I do believe that they'll get re-indicted and it will go back to trial. But like you said, it's bad copy.
Yeah, the positive, David, the silver lining is this. With Comey, he got indicted on the smallest of the charges that were out there.
Right.
Let's pull back. Let's get the really big ones.
Yeah. Let's
treason,
go for the full
sedition,
deal.
etc.
Yeah.
Add those two. Add what he had. Tack that all on the end again, and really do something this time. Now, Letitia, that's fraud. That's more of a state level. Yes, just re-indict her. Find a U.S. attorney somewhere that's already in place, re-indict her, and just move that one forward. But I think with Comey, we can turn it into a positive and really get him for what he really deserves to be gotten for.
I do too. Well, and they're still going after Swalwell as well, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
that is
Now,
correct.
even though he's announced that he's going to save California, I think his butt's still hanging over the edge right now too on the same mortgage fraud issues. Correct?
That is correct, and there's quite a
Yeah.
few others that we're still investigating. But back on
Yeah.
your initial question, so from the administration standpoint, the American people, rightly or wrongly, David, they have been given this line so many times for so many
Yeah.
generations that I'm going to clean it up. I have it done
Yeah.
by tomorrow, and then 4 years later, they didn't clean up a thing. And so
Right.
the American people are beginning to get frustrated. Are you going to deliver one or two things? Either you are like the rest, and we just got trolled again by, another name, no difference. Or, and this is the scariest part, David, have we gotten to the point in this country that regardless of the intent and the heart of an administration, they no longer have the power or the office of the presidency to get things accomplished?
Yeah.
I mean, are we being run by
I, yeah.
ghost government that is more
Yeah.
powerful than the office of the presidency?
Yeah. 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 And I I'm going to save that for another show, but uh, I have to believe that that's starting to seep into the conversation as well. I mean,
It
we
is.
we yeah, we saw it the last 4 years, right, with the whole
Correct.
auto pen routine and everything else because Biden was asleep at the switch. My God,
No question.
just look at the man, right? And so somebody was running something. And obviously they've been burying it up and burying it everywhere they could bury it ever since the transition. But, and I will say I think it was probably Obama's third term and whoever, that Biden brought in from the Obama administration that we went through the last 4 years. Because I don't think the orchestration of all those people coming across the border was by accident. And it wasn't
Agree.
because we were just being humanitarians. It was by design. They
I think,
they dropped their knickers on purpose for that whole
yeah,
thing.
I think you hit on a very key aspect there, David. This whole thing has been by design, and it wasn't designed in a matter of a day. They've been
No.
doing this for decades. We're
Yep.
just not coming to the climax of it. And
Yeah.
because it got discovered, fortunately got discovered, Americans woke up enough to install a different administration. Now they're fighting back to regain control. The question is, can they do that? And I think we'd be naive to say, oh, no, we've got it from here. You just stay home. We got it covered. No,
Oh, no. Oh, no, 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 no.
there's a
No,
very
no.
real possibility that they could actually
Oh,
win this
absolutely.
war.
Absolutely. And God help us, and I'm not in favor of eliminating the filibuster, but I will say that with a very large BUT. I think it's the only way that we can A, codify everything that Trump has done,
Agree.
and B, get the legislation out there that we need to get out there. Because if they roll us in the midterms, the next 2 years are going to be nothing but impeachment, 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 impeachment. God only knows impeachment for the following 2 years before
Correct.
we go into the next cycle, the presidential cycle. And we will have literally, and pardon my French, pissed away 2 years of the 4-year presidency of Trump. So the Republicans had better slide up to the table, put their big boy pants on, and get after this big time. Because if they don't, there is, and everybody can sit around, and I agree with you, Mike. I think everybody can sit around and say, yeah, there's no way that they're gonna roll the Republicans out of there and the Dems are gonna come in. Even with the absurdities that the Democrats have been blowing out there now since Trump took office, I think there's a real possibility. And everybody can sit there and laugh about Newsom, but there's a real possibility that moron could win the presidency.
Unfortunately, David, you're right. And the reason why I say you're right is we really have a voting. We have two problems. First of all, we got a voting populace that we don't know who they are. What I mean by that is we
Right.
have no safety nets. You don't have to be a citizen. You're supposed to be. but we don't check. In fact, for that matter, we don't even require you to present ID. So I
Right.
can go around and change the one letter in my name every precinct and go around and vote 10, 15 times in the precinct election if I need to. There are
Right.
so many. We are the only one of the only countries in the world that doesn't require voter ID and that
Right.
doesn't guard its elections. Why is that? I mean, we're supposed to be the most advanced, so why would we do that, Dave? I
Well,
mean,
there's a
it's
bunch
just
of
crazy.
countries still, that swear by paper ballots, Mike.
Right.
And
And I think it may not be a bad idea for this country, quite frankly.
right. Yeah, I don't see how it violates anybody's ability to vote by having a paper ballot. I
No, I
just
don't.
I
And
don't I don't
you
see it.
you love the convenience of talking about machine balloting, electronic balloting, etc.
Yeah.
But I gotta tell you, there's such a risk that it
Yeah.
can be tampered with. It's not worth the risk because people need to understand this is the most valuable right you have in this country. Is
Right.
to decide, is determine every 4 years what direction it's going to take, how it's going to spend your money, and how it's going to either help you or get us into wars or whatever it's going to do. You can't get a more important thing to do as a citizen than to
No.
vote. So we
No.
should be guarding it with everything it's worth. And
You
you're
would
going to
think
have that
so.
problem. Yeah, you're going to have that problem. And then next year, so you've got, unless we fix it, which I know they're talking about it, but remember again, talk is cheap unless you see action.
Exactly.
We've got to get it fixed. And then the other thing is the same principle. We've been telling people that we're the party that's going to, for law and order, we're going to restore, we're going to make America respectable, that they equal justice for all, which is what our Constitution requires. And yet that's a great speech, but we've got a very low batting average, zero as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we've still got the Clintons floating around out there with all the exposed truth around their foundation and everything else and the illegality of the things that they've done. Um, all I have to do is open up the DSA website and it reads like Obama's webpage. I mean,
It
it
is.
it, it and now the DSA, and for those of you that don't know who I'm talking about, it's the Democrat Socialists of America who have successfully, I would say, now some would
Taking
argue,
over the
but I
party.
think taken over the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's another issue that's on the horizon. So, like I said, if the Republicans don't start pulling on their big boy pants and really, really get out there and start manipulating the narrative like the Democrats, um, they stand a damn good chance of losing in the midterms, I think.
I think you're right. And the other part about it, David, is even you take a look at Obama. Tulsi has come up with plenty of records and emails and all that show that they
Oh
have
yeah,
planned a coup d'etat. I'm talking about with Russiagate, etc. All those are treasonable, chargeable
yeah,
offenses. And
yeah.
so the point I'm making to the administration is this: whether you like the Democrats or not, one thing you give them credit for, they don't ask permission. They
No,
just weaponize and do it, and you say you can't do that, sue me.
right.
By the
Yeah,
time you sue and it goes all the way through the appeal process, the administration's already gone. It's long over. And I'm suggesting it's time that we, as conservatives, do the same thing. Just say, look, we're going to do what's right by this country. We're going to issue indictments. We're going to make changes. We're going to remove activist judges. If you don't like it, that's fine. We'll see you in court. And by the time it gets heard, we'll probably be done anyway. But we're going to start taking action. I think the American people would rally behind that, and I think you would see a solidifying of our gains in the House and the Senate at the midterms. I think we'd be stronger
yeah.
the next midterms if we did that. But if we continue to vacillate and show weakness, uh, what you're going to happen is it's not going to be more leftist vote in terms of their greater
No,
numbers. It's just the
no,
conservatives are going to say, "Why vote? I mean, I don't ever see any
exactly.
results. I'm just staying home," and
Right.
that's when you're going to get into problems.
Yeah, no, and the evangelicals they're going to turn to a completely different scenario, so they
Correct.
won't be voting either. And we're going to end up with the Bernie Sanders administration is what we're going to end up with.
You're exactly right.
And
Unfortunately, that is where we're headed. And in discussions within the administration, I understand the pause. And what I mean by that is, well, we want to make sure we're above board. We're doing everything right. Let's be careful how we handle things. Sometimes you just gotta just from a military standpoint, you just gotta charge and take the hill. I
yeah,
mean, you just do it. Quit talking about
yeah,
it and get it done. That's the
yeah.
only way to advance the battle forward. And sometimes I
Well,
feel like we get too cautious as Republicans.
oh, I completely agree with you. And the thing that stands out in my head is the whole J6 panel that should be indicted for what they pulled. And
Correct.
they continued to investigate the damn thing. They know damn good and well that the people that they threw in jail and let them just sit there and rot, many of whom never even got their day in court. They violated their rights and everything else. Every one of those panel members, Raskin, Cheney, all of them, ought to be held accountable.
Well, what they're hoping for is they're hoping that Pam's going to continue to just sit back and do nothing because in 40 days, statute of limitations runs out.
Yeah,
And they're
yeah,
very
that's my point.
comfortable that
My point.
the statute of limitations will run out and they will escape prosecution. That's why they don't like me up there in DC because I come back always with an alternative. Well, that's great because January 6th dealt with the election, which is national security, and the
Right,
military. The Constitution provides that military tribunals can deal with civilians dealing with issues of national security. So let's
right.
just move it over from a judicial
To the
process
military.
to the military, and great. We don't have to worry about the statute of limitations. We're just going to move
Yep,
forward with it.
yep. Nope, I
They can't
agree.
argue with me. The pushback I get from the administration is, well, we really haven't done military tribunals before. Aren't we going to
So,
move it into new territory? I said,
no.
that's not true. We've done plenty of military tribunals in the
Yep,
history in this country.
yep.
And now more than ever, do we need to do it now?
We absolutely have. And, just because our educational system hasn't taught, uh, you know, civics or the history of this country for the last 3 or 4 generations is not an excuse.
Correct.
Um, because there are plenty of examples out there of military tribal uh, assemblage against civilians for what they've done. The Civil War bespeaks several of them.
Correct. No question.
And if I'm not mistaken, Trump's already evoked or tried to evoke some pretty old legislation as well relative to what he's been trying to do.
He has,
So
and of course, I'm smiling because one of the things that he's doing today, have done today, was to issue an executive order, or considering issuing an executive order. He was thinking about doing it before Thanksgiving, it maybe after, but barring Sharia law in this country, Sharia
yeah,
law cannot be
well, they've
implemented.
done it in Texas.
Correct.
They've done it in Texas. I don't see any reason at all. But see, and that's another whole issue where the House and the Senate ought to come together, to hell with the filibuster and all of that other crap, and codify that kind of stuff to where it's part of the fabric of this country and be done with it, right?
They should, but here's the dilemma for them. They are more concerned about themselves,
Oh, I
about
know.
maintaining, about getting power, and they feel very comfortable. And I think that this would be a reasonable assessment to make that the majority of those Islamic that do vote, they shouldn't be voting because, quite frankly, 90% of them are not even American citizens. But
Right.
those that vote anyway are going to vote Democratic. They've seen that with Omar putting her in the House, etc. And that's why they don't want to codify anything like that because they don't want to give up those ability for those votes. What a
Yeah,
shame that we've gotten to that point in this country.
absolutely. Well, listen, Mike, it's been an absolute honor, as it always is, to have you on the show. We've been talking to Michael Letts, who's the CEO and founder of Invest USA, and they supply concealable
Active shooter vest, yes.
active shooter vests to the police police forces across the United States. And as you've heard, Michael has a voice in the administration as well. So again, Mike, it's been an absolute honor to have you on the show, and I wish you and your family a big Thanksgiving. And
Well, the same to you, David, and we're honored to be on your show because you are bringing the key back to restoring America to greatness, and that is telling the truth. Unfortunately, the mainstream media has no interest in what we just discussed.
yeah, it is unfortunate. But I guess what worries me, Mike, is there's a lot of people that don't want to hear it either, right?
I would agree.
You know, they just want to see the sunshine and rainbows puffed up their butt. That's
Right.
that's all they want, right?
Just give me my paycheck and
Yeah, they don't.
give me
Yeah,
my coffee or whatever, and I don't want to hear about anything
yeah.
else.
Unfortunately, they don't want to do the hard work. But there's some of us out here that are just pig-headed enough to just keep on doing it. So anyway, Mike, big happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Take care, and we'll get together again after after the holidays, and see what in the world we can stir up then.
There'll be a lot to stir up because I'm expecting a lot of changes. I think we're having an impact. God bless you, David. God bless
All right.
America, and happy Thanksgiving.
God bless you too, Mike. Take care, buddy.
All right, you do the same.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to listen to more Clarity from Chaos shows on demand, go to clarityfromchaos.buzzsprout.com or send Dave an email at info@clarityfromchaos.com for information on previous shows. You can also listen to the show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Twitter, or Google Podcast. Until next time, please remember, it's not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Be well, everyone.